In the heart of a bustling Chicago high school, where lockers slammed and sneakers squeaked, 16-year-old Amara Diaz sat quietly in the back of Mr. Whitaker's advanced calculus class. Her worn-out sneakers barely touched the floor, and her hands fidgeted with a pencil that had seen better days. Amara wasn't supposed to be here, not in this elite classroom filled with students whose parents owned skyscrapers or ran tech startups. She was the Maid's daughter, a scholarship kid who slipped through the cracks of privilege, unnoticed except when someone needed a target. But today, Mr. Whitaker's piercing gaze locked onto her like a spotlight, and Amara felt her heart thud. "Miss Diaz," he said, his voice sharp enough to cut glass, "solve the problem on the board. Now." The room fell silent, every eye on her. She wasn't a student to him, just a challenge to expose. Amara's mother, Rosa, cleaned houses by day and offices by night, her hands rough from years of scrubbing floors to keep Amara in this school. Amara knew the weight of her mother's sacrifice, the late-night bus rides, the whispered prayers for a better future. She carried that weight in her chest, a quiet fire that burned alongside her fear of being seen. The problem on the board was a beast, a differential equation so complex it made even the top students squirm. Mr. Whitaker, the school's celebrated math teacher, had a reputation for breaking egos. He assumed Amara, with her second-hand backpack and quiet demeanor, would crumble under the pressure. "Go on," he pressed, a smirk tugging at his lips. "Show us what you're made of." Amara stood, her knees trembling but her eyes steady. She didn't belong here, not in their eyes. Her classmates whispered, some with pity, others with glee. She was the girl who ate lunch alone, whose mother mopped the very hallways they walked. But what no one knew, not even her mother, was that Amara's mind was a universe of numbers. At night, while Rosa slept, Amara pored over library books, solving equations in the margins of her notebook, finding solace in the logic of numbers when the world felt chaotic. She didn't solve problems, she danced with them, twirling through patterns no one else could see. As she approached the board, chalk in hand, the room seemed to shrink. The equation loomed like a mountain, but to Amara, it was a map. Her fingers moved swiftly, chalk tapping a rhythm only she could hear. She broke the problem into pieces, her mind weaving through derivatives and integrals with an elegance that silenced the whispers. Mr. Whitaker's smirk faded. The top student, Ethan, who always bragged about his perfect scores, leaned forward, his brow furrowed. Amara didn't notice. She was lost in the numbers, her heart pounding not from fear but from the thrill of discovery. Minutes passed, and when she stepped back, the board was a masterpiece of logic, clean, precise, and undeniably correct. The room was still, save for the faint squeak of chalk dust settling. Mr. Whitaker stared, his mouth slightly open, as if the equation had rewritten his assumptions about her. "That's correct," he said, almost to himself. A murmur rippled through the class, not of mockery but of awe. Amara returned to her seat, her cheeks warm, her eyes fixed on her desk. She didn't see Ethan's stunned expression or the girl next to him scribbling a note. She didn't know that this moment was the spark of something bigger. Word of Amara's brilliance spread like wildfire. By lunch, students she'd never spoken to were glancing her way, their whispers now tinged with curiosity. Mr. Whitaker, shaken but proud, called her to his office after school. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" he asked, his tone softer than she'd ever heard. Amara shrugged, her voice barely above a whisper. "No one asked." She didn't say how she'd learned to stay invisible, how being the maid's daughter meant keeping her head down to avoid trouble. Mr. Whitaker leaned back, his eyes searching hers. "You're extraordinary, Amara. You could change the world with that mind." But Amara didn't want to change the world, not yet. She wanted to make her mother proud, to repay the years of sacrifice. That evening, she told Rosa about the class, expecting a smile. Instead, Rosa's face crumpled. "Mija, I didn't know you were struggling to fit in," she said, her voice thick with guilt. "I thought this school was your chance." Amara hugged her tightly, whispering, "It is, Mama." I didn't want to stand out. Rosa held her daughter's face, her calloused hands gentle. You're my star, Amara. Don't hide your light. The next day, an unexpected turn came. Ethan, the golden boy of the math team, approached Amara at her locker. She braced for a jab, but instead, he held out a flyer for the National Math Olympiad. You should try out, he said, his voice earnest. We need you. Amara blinked, stunned. Ethan wasn't known for kindness, he was competitive, driven, the kind of kid who saw others as obstacles. But something in his eyes told her he meant it. Hesitant, she took the flyer, her fingers brushing the paper as if it might vanish. The Olympiad trials were a whirlwind. Amara's talent shone brighter with each round, her solutions not just correct but innovative, earning nods from judges who whispered about a prodigy. Yet the pressure grew. Her classmates, once distant, now rallied around her, but so did their expectations. She felt the weight of their hopes, her mother's dreams, and her own quiet desire to prove she belonged. At night, she studied until her eyes burned, equations blending with memories of Rosa's tired smiles. Amara overheard Ethan arguing with a teammate who'd mocked her background. She's better than all of us, Ethan snapped. You don't get to talk about her like that. Amara froze, her heart swelling. For the first time, she felt seen, not as the maid's daughter, but as Amara, the girl who could rewrite equations and, maybe, her own story. The day of the Olympiad arrived, a crisp Chicago morning where the city buzzed with possibility. Amara stood among the nation's brightest, her second-hand jacket a stark contrast to the polished uniforms around her. The final problem was a monster, a fractal-like equation that twisted in on itself. The room was a sea of furrowed brows, but Amara's mind lit up. She saw the pattern, the hidden symmetry, and her pencil flew across the page. When the timer stopped, she knew she'd solved it, not just correctly, but beautifully. The results were announced in a packed auditorium. Amara's name echoed as the first-place winner, and the crowd erupted. Her teammates lifted her onto their shoulders, chanting her name. But the moment that broke her came after, when Mr. Whitaker found her backstage. I was wrong about you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I pushed you to prove you didn't belong, but you showed me what brilliance looks like. I'm sorry, Amara. And I'm so proud. Tears stung her eyes as she nodded, unable to speak. His apology was a gift, a crack in the wall she'd built to protect herself. The emotional climax came that evening. Rosa, who'd taken a rare day off to attend, stood waiting outside the auditorium. Amara ran to her, the gold medal heavy around her neck. Rosa's eyes shone with tears as she pulled Amara close. This is for us, Mija, she whispered. For every floor I scrubbed, every night I prayed. But Amara shook her head, her voice steady despite the lump in her throat. No, Mama. This is for you. I'm going to make sure you never have to clean another house. In that moment, Amara vowed to use her gift not just for herself, but to lift her mother's burden, to turn their sacrifices into a future neither had dared dream. News of Amara's victory spread beyond the school. A local university offered her a full scholarship, and a tech company sponsored her family, easing Rosa's workload. But the true transformation was quieter. Amara began tutoring younger students, sharing her love for numbers with kids who, like her, felt invisible. She taught them to see equations as stories, each one a chance to shine. Ethan, inspired by her selflessness, started a mentorship program, and Mr. Whitaker rewrote his teaching approach, seeking out the quiet brilliance in every student.